News. My name is Lucas, and today we're going to be going over the Treble Clef staff. Now, on my board you can see that I already have some staff lines written, as well as my treble clef and a few notes written down already. So our goal today is to be going over our notes on the spaces as well as the lines. Now, in music there are a few different funny sayings or words that we can use to help us memorize the different notes on the staff. But key thing is that whenever we are counting our lines or our spaces, we always want to start from top to bottom. So for example, you see here that I have 5 lines and 4 spaces. Now to number them, I'm just going to write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on my lines in green, and in red I will write 1, 2, 3, 4 for my spaces. Okay, so red for my spaces and green for my lines. So we're going to be focusing on our spaces today. Now, the most common word that we use to help us memorize our notes on the spaces is just the simple word of face. Now, if for whatever reason that is a little bit more difficult to remember that our word is face for our spaces, I've written out a few little emojis up here in our notes and some of the emotions that they are feeling based on whatever in here. So our first space is going to be an F, and sometimes he feels a little bit of fear. Our next space is going to be an A, and you can see that he's a little bit angry for the position that he's in. Our next one is a little bit more calm, and our third space is going to be C. But because he's going last, he's a little bit more excited because he gets to spend a little bit more time with us today, and that is excitement for E. But nonetheless, like our music, our notes also feel emotions, and those emotions can be seen on our face. Okay? So, starting from the bottom again, F, A, C, E. F, A, C, E, or face in the space. Alright, next we're going to be looking at our notes on our lines. Now, the most common phrase that we use, or a funny little sentence as I like to call, for our lines in our treble clef staff is every good boy deserves fudge. Now, for me personally, I like boxers. I grew up with boxers, such a fun and silly breed. So for me, I like to say instead, every good boxer does fine. So same idea, we're looking at the first letter within every word. So for example, the E in every, the G in good, the B in boxer, the D in does, and the F in fine. Again, I do have my lines and spaces numbered over here, red for my lines and the color green for my spaces. Again, we want to start from bottom to top. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for our lines, 1, 2, 3, 4 for our spaces. So in our first line, we're going to have E for every. On our second line, we're going to have G for good. On our third line, we're going to have B for boxer, D for does, and F for fine. Okay? Now, I highly recommend, if you'd like to memorize just these different sayings and the one word that we had for our spaces, which was face, to either circle back around and memorize the different positions that they are going to be found, whether, again, that's on that line or space. Now, remember how I told you that usually the common phrase for our lines is every good boy deserves fudge. You can change that however you would like. Again, I modified this to every good boxer does fine. But if you find something funnier, sillier, or something to help you memorize that saying better, do that. With music, it's amazing on how much we can adapt it to our style to best work our needs, and that's the whole point of being a musician, is finding something that you like and running with it. So, I'm going to be writing some exercises up here on the board, and I want to see how you do. So again, go back if you need to see how well you're doing so far on memorizing the one word face, or our funny little sentence here, every good boxer does fine. So we're going to have 3 different levels of being able to read our notes and put into practice what we just learned. Alright. right, so up here on the board I have level 1. So go ahead and take a few seconds to go ahead and figure out what each note is. Now you'll notice I divided our notes on our lines and spaces by a blue line. Do the notes on the left side first. Once you've completed that, go ahead and give the notes on the right side a try. All right, how did we do? Let's go ahead and write up our notes on the answers and see how we did. All right, so if you haven't figured it out already, all it is are our words or our funny little sentences that we came up with, but backwards. So our first note on our 5th line, looking at the left side of my blue line, is going to be F. My note on my 4th line is going to be D. My note on my 3rd line is going to be B. My note on my 2nd line is going to be G. And my note on my 1st line is going to be E. How did you do? Drop down what you got down below in the comments. Let's go to move over to the right side of our blue line. So again, it's just face backwards. So our note on the 4th space is going to be E. Our note on the 3rd space is going to be C. And our note on the 2nd space is going to be A. And of course, our last one, our note on the 1st space is going to be F. How did you do? Are you ready to move on to level 2? Let's do it. All right, so up here on the board I have level 2. You notice that our notes are now going to be mixed up a little bit more. So same thing, I'll go ahead and give you a few seconds to go ahead and figure out my notes here. Again, you notice that I have my blue line dividing our notes on the lines and our notes on the spaces. So pick a side to do first, and then after that, go ahead and go to the next one. All right, how did we do? Let's go ahead and write our answers on the board. So our first. All right, did you get those correct? So our notes looking at the left side of our blue line on the 1st line is going to be E. Our note on the 5th line is going to be F. Our note on the 2nd line is going to be G. Our note on the 4th line is going to be D. And our note on the 3rd line is going to be a B. A B. Now I know my handwriting is not the best, but nonetheless it's still going to be a B. All right, moving over to the right side of our blue line, our first note on our 1st space is going to be an F. Our note on our 4th space is going to be E. Our note on our 2nd space is going to be A. And our note on our 3rd space is going to be C. How did you do? All right, we'll go ahead and do one more level. Alrighty, so you'll notice for level 3 that this time they are more mixed up, and there are doubles as well. So just because you've used a note doesn't mean it cannot be used again. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a few seconds to go ahead and complete this. All right, how do you think you did? Let's go ahead and write our answers on the board. All right, so our first note over here is on our 1st line, which makes it an E. Our note up here on the 4th space makes it a E as well. Our note on our 2nd line makes it a G. Our note on our 3rd space makes it a C. Our note on our 3rd line makes it a B. Our note on our 1st space makes it an F. Our note on our 4th line makes it a D. Our note on our 2nd space makes it an A. Our note on our 1st line makes it an E. Notice for this one it is a repeat from our 1st note over here. Now I know this one's a little bit more squished next to this one, but nonetheless our note on our 5th line makes it an F, and our note on our third line makes it a B. So, how did you do? That concludes our little lesson for our notes on the treble clef staff. So, I would recommend again going back and memorizing those funny little sentences or that one word. So, every good boxer does fine for our lines and face for our spaces. Make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for any of our future upcoming videos.